And so we're very fortunate to have Representative Welch with us to kind of do a check-in with us from his perspective about what's going on in the House and in the district in general and whatnot, and thought it was an opportunity for some of you from Vermont credit unions to share with him about what you're seeing in your credit unions and in the communities that you serve and so on and so forth. So with that, if it's okay with you, Peter, I thought I'd just throw it to you and you can run in whatever direction.
I'm kind of disappointed we're doing this over Zoom, and instead of me showing up and walking out with a couple of free lunches down in DC. Those are good.
I'll see if we can send you some packaged box lunches.
I can't eat those cookies in Lent. I gave up dessert, so.
Right.
It's really great to be with you, and I look forward to hearing your feedback about how the various programs that you're sort of core in helping get out to Vermont businesses are doing. Just step back a minute. It literally was a year ago, pretty much right around now, that this whole thing began. And it's pretty astonishing when you think about this year. It's not a year we've had in this country in 100 years with the pandemic. And there's been a lot of challenges that we've had to try to face, including just accepting that this pandemic was for real, that it posed immense threats to our health and well-being, required all of us on a personal level to adjust how we lived. It really disrupted many of our relationships and our ability to see people we love and care about. And of course, it had a huge impact on livelihoods in Vermont businesses. Of course, you all are at the center of the effort to try in a practical way to help those businesses survive through the PPP program. But there was a very big response by Congress with the initial PPP program, and Vermont did better than most states in terms of the take-up rate among especially smaller businesses. And it had to do, in I think a very significant way, due to the relationships that our small credit unions and some of our banks have with local Vermonters. The PPP has really been essential in my view, because we've got to help individuals. We really do, we know that. But we've got to help communities as well. Because when we get to the other side of this, if we don't have those small businesses, those restaurants, those performance spaces, those downtown and mid-town enterprises that give so much vitality and texture to community life, then we'll have failed, in my view. We've got to help individuals, but we've got to help those businesses. And the take-up rate on PPP here has been extraordinary. And there's been a real opportunity for smaller businesses to take advantage of programs that have brought about $1.5 billion into the state in the last year. As you know, Congress this week, the House probably this week, and the Senate probably next week is going to be voting on another package. And that package is big, $1.9 trillion. And its components are vaccination money, other healthcare monies to help our healthcare providers. But the most important goal is to get people vaccinated as quickly as possible, because we know that's the key to getting back to normal. And it's the key to basically putting our economy in shape to have a self-sustaining recovery. And a number of economists think that's a real possibility because there's a lot of pent-up demand that can be unleashed when we're safe to go about our businesses, go about business like before. There's money in there to open schools, there's money to help individuals, and there's more PPP in there. And the Biden administration is doing an even more focused approach towards smaller businesses that are like 20 and under. So all of that puts a lot of pressure on you, because it's your door that the businesses knock on, and you're the ones that helps a lot of folks who are pretty desperate financially, trying to figure out how to make this happen. You're the ones who help interpret for them and help them do the work to assist them in getting eligibility, getting the funds. And I really want to say thank you for the incredible work you've done. And I know that's hard because Congress appropriates the money and starts a program, but then the regulations are written by Treasury, sometimes SBA or other entities. And sometimes those regulations are in conflict with the congressional intent. Sometimes, if not all the time, they're pretty confusing, sometimes in conflict with one another. And you have to manage this program with incomplete information and with a level of anxiety within your institutions, but also for your program participants. And I just want to say thank you for working through that this past year. We're here always, of course, to try to make adjustments on the basis of real world information. So we were successful in getting some changes in those regulations early on. It was on the basis of hearing from so many of our lenders about what the practical challenges were and what some of the practical questions were. And our office, Fauna's with us here today, really wants to hear from you about your specific suggestions about what we can do to provide clarity, what we can do to provide assurance, and what we can do to help you make this a more effective program. The good news here for me is that we really do have light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, a year ago, we were hoping we'd have a vaccine, and I remember at that point, the best estimates were that we might get a vaccine sometime in the winter, like around now or months from now. But in fact, we've had a vaccine since December or so, and millions of people have been vaccinated, and we're up to almost 1.9 million people being vaccinated a day, with the number, I think, expected to go up. That's leaving out the cancellations due to these fierce storms that we've had across the country. But right now, we've got to hang in, and we've got to continue to wear a mask and social distance. We've got to continue to provide support for our businesses so that when everyone goes back to normal, those businesses will be there to add to the vitality of community life and strengthen our economy. And you have to, as hard as it's been for you for this past year, as unusual as the circumstances are that you're working in, I'm asking you to keep it up until we don't have to keep it up anymore. And all of us really we can't wait for that day to come, but we've got to continue until that day does arrive. So Joe, I'll stop there where I began with a thank you to each and every one of you and the incredible role that you're playing in the resilience of Vermont. Thank you, Joe.
And thank you for all the work that you've been doing on behalf of Vermonters and the whole country in the nation's capital during all of this challenging time. We all have challenging jobs. People in Congress, people in credit unions, people in grocery stores. It's everything.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
No, that's the right attitude, Joe.
So we have about 20 minutes left or so before Peter has to move on to the next commitment that he's got. But here's our opportunity to, either ask questions or share what's going on, what you see going on with your member communities in the locations your credit unions serve. So anybody want to just start out and jump in and be first? Don't be bashful.
I'm happy to go first if you want, Joe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello, Representative. How are you?
Good, Peter. Yeah, it's good to see you.
I would tell you that with regard to PPP, the process has been much smoother this time around. Obviously, the last time around where we were kind of, building the car as we were driving it at the same time. So it's still not, it's still imperfect in places, but I think I really do think it's working really well as you described.
Yeah, that's great.
And the expectations, I think the businesses have less uncertainty as part of the process than what they had the first time around. And I think that for lack of a better term, the fear factor is dialed back a little bit because we've been involved in the current situation for as long as we have. So we're finding that it's working. We're seeing a steady application flow. I will say that it doesn't meet all businesses' needs, correct? And those businesses, at least, some of our business members that are suffering the most are the hospitality businesses, and particularly the small inns and hotels throughout Vermont. I will tell you that they think that, in our discussions with them, they believe that, if the vaccines get rolled out and we start to see relaxation of the travel restrictions across the country, but particularly in the Northeast, for the most part, they all think they're going to make it through this.
Really?
I do think that they're going to need some help on the other side. It's not going to be the same kind of help. It'll be more longer duration in terms of its applicability, and I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But we'll continue to talk with them and work with them to let you know. As far as our members, for the most. I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Oh,
no, I'm okay.
I thought you raised your.
No.
So as far as our members seem, we had an initial sort of increase in deferments, forbearance, and other accommodations in our loans. Those have really leveled off. I would guess that others are seeing some of the same thing. We saw a little bit of a pickup near the end of the year, but nothing out of the ordinary. And so I think from that standpoint, we've kind of leveled off, and hopefully, as you say, as vaccines get rolled out and travel restrictions get relaxed, that we'll see people start to go back to work. So, all in all, it's actually kind of extraordinary, despite the incredible impact it's had on people in their lives, that it hasn't actually impacted it even more, given how incredibly disruptive the pandemic's been. The people that frankly, the cumulative impact, and I don't know that there's anything really to do, but it's really our staff, particularly those that are member facing, just the cumulative daily impact of working in the public in the current environment has been a challenge. And
exhausting.
Yeah, I know you're aware of it. I just reiterate it for your own purposes, but that's kind of what we're seeing out there, but I defer to some of my colleagues to add to that.
Well, thank you for that. And that actually is upbeat news. I just was pausing it, your staff, it's tough to work all day with a mask on. I mean, I get all irritable with my mask, and my glasses fog up, and then when they fog up, I can't find my car keys, and then I got to yell at somebody when that happens. But I just can imagine what it's like all day to be with a mask on, like a clerk, checkout clerk. So hard. And
it's stressful it's stressful for everyone. So the members are also stressed, and they can translate that sometimes into behavior.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think John is queued up next from NEFCU.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. Congressman, how are you?
I'm good, John. How are you?
We're doing well. Fortunately, we're actually just putting together some of our numbers for the end of the year to try.
I gotta interrupt you for a minute here. Are we looking at a COVID beer here? What's going on?
Yeah, it's my new look. So thanks for pointing that out for everybody else on the call.
Can we do a little survey, Joe, to see?
There have been opinions
down here.
So that's always helpful.
You look good. You look good, John.
Thank you, sir. So I think everything Rob said is probably valid for all of us. Just a couple of data points for you that he didn't point out. I think just to confirm, we have literally 60,000 loans outstanding. And during the year, we made modifications on just over 800 of them.
Wow.
So that's significant for those 800 members. But I think in the context of the overall impact in the community, it is fairly narrow and very harsh for those people.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
At the end of the year, we only had about 85 outstanding. So
that's remarkable.
We really have, I think, in Vermont, seen people really do relatively well.
So what do you attribute that to?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. One is, the Vermonters are conservative. So, I think I can't speak to all of the institutions on the call. So one difference is, NEFCU and the IBM background that we have as a credit union. The other is Vermonters and recognizing that they are very conservative in their borrowing. I think that's been true for many years. The other influence, and it's kind of the second data point, is with mortgage rates being as low as they were during the year and are still. We helped over 4,200 people get mortgages last year.
Wow.
And over 1,600 of those were members who refinanced for the same rate, for a different rate, a lower rate, but the same term. So they basically refinanced the balance into the same, a new loan. And those members have decreased their payments by about $137 on average. So,
Wow.
that's I think something else that we were able to, and many of the institutions on the call, a big part of our business, a big part of how busy we were in this pandemic was really related to helping members lower their costs each month.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're preparing that to try to tell our members that story in our annual meeting. But I think it's certainly one of the strong messages that credit unions bring to the table this year, that PPP has been big, other loan programs have been big, but certainly for us, you've got a mortgage refinance volume that we never thought would. We came close to $1 billion in mortgages last year, 970 million.
Wow, amazing.
So we're really, that was, if we think about how our involvement in supporting the community, a big piece of it was how much we helped members with their mortgage needs during the year. And everybody else on the call has similar stories, so I will shut up now.
That's great. Well, that's really interesting, John. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who do we want to jump to next? We got a number of credit unions represented on the line. Just feel free to share your story or ask a question.
Good evening,
Jean?
Representative Welch.
Yeah, Peter.
Vermont Federal, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We're finding some of the very same things that John and Rob talked about for Vermont Federal Credit Union. We found that in the beginning, we had a large number of our members that took the deferral programs and the skip pay programs, but we've now down to just a handful of deferrals at this point. And so our members have are doing all right through the programs. We certainly did a lot of the PPP loans. We're getting PPP loans paid off and into the second round of PPP loans. What I'm finding though that are falling through the hole are the brand new people that were trying to start new businesses. When you look at PPP, it jumps back to early parts of 2020 and 2019. And there's just this hole for people who tried to start a business just as PPP started. And we're seeing some members that are struggling at this point at that place. And I think Vermont is looking at helping out to some extent with some of the newer businesses that started during the pandemic. But other than that, I think that that Vermonters are finding their way through.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. It's amazing.
And Congressman, excuse me, Bob Moore from North Country. Hello, and thanks for joining. I largely echo the comments that my peers have shared with you. A subject that I want to just touch on just from an economic perspective, the social pieces are pretty well documented. Is I do think there is a segment of Vermonters very adversely affected with schools at least being in a partial hybrid situation. Although Vermont's unemployment rate is near pre-pandemic levels, I think the total number of jobs in the state's about 10,000. I know less than what it was before, and I know just in talking to some of our members, those who have been suffering, some have had to make choices between leaving their job and supporting their kids at home. Even at North Country, we have a number of employees who are working on reduced hours, and we've been able to support them through the FFCRA type programs that have put in place. That's been really helpful. But just, I think, obviously there's federal legislation, a lot of money targeted towards schools. I think that is not only a social issue that is well documented, it's really important for the economics of the state as well. And in terms of members who are suffering, that is, in my assessment, one of the causes that we haven't shown enough light on thus far. So
that's brutal in school, on parents. I mean, kids need school and parents need school. I was just on a call with a woman who's got 2 kids, 4th and 5th grade, and my God, the kids went back to school for the last 2 weeks. And I mean, that was good news. So I know Governor Scott is really doing everything he can to get, to have as much school as possible. But, and you're right, Bob, on that.
thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else? A few minutes left. Feel free to ask a question or share what's been going on in your credit union.
Well, I want to thank you guys. I mean, it's actually reassuring, the news you're giving me, that people are hanging on, that my kind of conservative approach to borrowing has put them in a good position in this tough time. And that's incredibly reassuring. It gives me some hope that when we do get vaccinated and our kids are back in school, there's going to be some pent-up demand, and our businesses will be here to take advantage of it when we get to that day. But I really, really appreciate all you guys have been doing for Vermonters.
Real quick question for you, Peter. That $1.9 trillion dollar package that's kind of on the fast track, so to speak, I guess. Do you see much change between now and the time that it gets to the president's desk, or is it pretty well cast, you think?
I think it's pretty well cast. The dilemma we have, Joe, as you know, is that we've got a very tight margin in the House. There's an effort to see if we can get some Republicans as well as Democrats to support this. It's a 50-50 vote in the Senate, and it's very tight. And the reality is that this package, the polling, if you ask people, there's a good deal of support for it. I mean, if you and I sat down and looked at the whole program, we could probably make adjustments here and adjustments there, and say we're doing a little too much here, maybe a little too little there. But overall, the polling indicates that there's a good deal of bipartisan support among the public. Washington, obviously, there's politics comes into it, so it's going to be a very tight vote. But I think the elements of this are largely determined. And I have confidence we'll pass it in the House. It's 50-50 in the Senate. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's really important to the Biden administration that it be passed. There's a real view, I think a consensus view among economists, that we definitely need more help. There's a bit of a debate about whether 1.9 is the right number, but there is consensus, I think, that significant help to individuals, to businesses, and to state and locality, to state government and localities is important. Under this legislation, by the way, $900 million would be coming to the state of Vermont, a little more than that, 961. 2/3 would go to the state, and 1/3 to the municipalities and the towns, and they'd have a good deal of flexibility. And actually, I see that as very promising, because they can partner with like local food shelves or nonprofits to try to help put that community back together and target where the help is really, really needed. So I think that's a really, really important part of this, because it's going to engage local leaders in these decisions about how best to put ourselves back to where we were. And what I think is good about this program, but even though there'll be a probably largely partisan vote, I think there is bipartisan support. But everything that's in this bill is going to be beneficial, whether you're a small business or a restaurant in Vermont or red state Oklahoma. You know what I mean? It's not a partisan deal in terms of who's going to benefit. We can have an argument about what's the right design of it and what's the right price tag. But helping businesses, it's going to be whether you're in Texas or Vermont. Helping restaurants, Oklahoma or Vermont, it doesn't matter. Helping state governments and municipalities, the aid is going to be shared, not allocated on any kind of partisan basis. Also, the individual aid is the same way. So there are not policies that are largely advocated by one party or the other. There is a recognition that COVID has been an equal opportunity killer. I mean, whatever your political persuasion is not of interest to the COVID virus. And the same is true about the economic devastation. If you're a small business, you're going to get hurt, and we want to help you. And that, I hope, is unifying. I see our response to COVID has to be about a universal vaccine. It has to be about the universal recovery. So even if we have a somewhat partisan vote, there's a real universality to attacking the virus and rebuilding the economy.
Thank you for that. Any parting question from anybody? We know Fauna's looking at the clock and seeing what time it is. So thank you, Congressman, for spending
Thank you.
Carving this time out of your day.
Well, I always enjoy being with you guys. I'm really sorry I'm not getting my cookie free lunch and FaceTime with you guys.
We'll see if we can send you some
those
cookies.
days will come.
We'll send to Fauna and others on your staff data on what Vermont credit unions have been doing along the lines of what everyone's been referencing,
Great.
and some issues that we've talked about before that we still have concerns about, like data security.
Great.
We've
Yeah.
talked about that before. But thank you so much for
Thanks.
spending this time with us.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
You
Take
too.
care.
Anytime.
Yeah.
And for the rest of you, I just want you to know that as we are speaking here, we are having a back and forth, waiting to confirm some dates with Senators Leahy and Sanders with their schedulers. Trying to make it on a Monday like this, so it can be the default time that we usually do these things at, but it may end up being at a different day of the week and time, but we'll do the best we can to keep it on Mondays at this time, since this is what everyone's accustomed to. In the meantime, we'll have continue scheduling other speakers from state government and whatnot in this Monday slot too, in between those times. So watch Newslines Express, our COVID update, and for those of you that are registered for the GAC, we'll send a note out, well, those 3 different ways about when our next ones of these are scheduled for everyone. Molly Dillon, I see you're on the line. Anything that we need to know about from DFR, or are we good? Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, I think we're good. That was a very nice report from all of you to talk about Vermont, rather than thinking about the national news, which I don't know always reflects what we're doing.
Right.
We don't have very much in legislation this time. It's mostly, as you can imagine, our bill is mostly insurance kinds of products. So much has changed and so much had to be kind of looked at this year because of COVID. So there's no real banking bill. I think we've got a couple little corrections in there. But so that's not nobody's gonna tear my head off after the legislators take a look at what we've got. I will tell you that because of the insurance market, I just heard this morning that through the month of February, we've already licensed twice as many as last year new captive insurance firms.
Wow.
And that's because the insurance market is kind of partly anticipating disaster and partly hardening up. So that's probably one of the busier, between that and insurance, that's probably the busy parts of what Michael's looking at every day. And as you know, we've been saying, I feel so fortunate that so many of our examiners were already categorized as work from home employees, that we had a lot of the technology. So things are just moving along. Other than seeing people only on a screen, I think other than that, most of our work is just proceeding very well for the whole division, the whole department. And then of course we have Mike, we're all holding the fort, and you see him every Tuesday.
He's
But
off on television.
Tuesday. He looked a little tired last week. I was gonna send him a little cryptic note, but I thought no, leave it alone.
Right. Well, thank you for that
So-
update. Appreciate it. Hey,
So Jean, I had a question. Jean, are you guys gonna move soon?
No, we have another probably 6 to 8 months before we can do that. We're just-
Okay, all right, I was just wondering. And I suppose, I suppose that most of you saw about People's United being bought by M&T. That's a big deal. And it's not a state chartered institution, but they have a fairly big ops center still down in Brattleboro. So, we're obviously, for the benefit of the state, hoping that will remain as maybe a regional center or something like that. But that's kind of big news.
does while you're on that subject, does the arrival of Chase in the Burlington area, I don't know, give you any thoughts of one sort or another, or is it just another branch of another institution?
Yeah, well, I think that's that. Let me just say, I think on the retail side, it will be more like just another branch. I wouldn't be surprised if they might have some, sort of industrial specialty lending or something that might start to affect maybe some of your either member business loans or the commercial banks, kind of like the way Citizens is really focused on utilities, really. So I'm sure that's possible. But so far from what I've seen, you all do pretty well with Vermonters whenever there's any kind of a change. We saw such an increase in deposits, not just PPP, but before that, when Merchants was bought, we saw that many of you got some deposit dollars from that. And so I think I am usually an optimist, and I'm thinking that Chase is not going to take over for any of you guys.
Right. No, Vermont Credians do a great job, and we're proud of them and glad they're here. Thank
I'm
you,
so
Melissa.
bad at this with the camera there and you over here. I should just have one screen and forget about it.
We're anxiously awaiting that day where the camera is in the center of your screen.
Yeah,
And-
right.
Yeah,
Or moves with your eyes.
maybe
Any
somebody's
of you
invented
who
that.
have, 20-year-olds that could invent that, I'm in.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know that they have to be as old as 20 though.
Exactly. You might be right. 15, 12. Yeah.
Hey, any parting comments for the group, anybody, or questions?
Or questions for me, I'm happy.
All right, well, if not, hey, it's been a pleasure having you all with us this afternoon for the past 40 minutes or so. Thank you very much. Watch Newslands Express and our COVID update for the next meetings that we have, including the ones for Welch and Sanders. They'll be coming, Sanders and Leahy. They'll be coming up very soon.
Great.
Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you.